What's good, everybody? Feels good to be back. I know it's only been a few days, but I was out sick with whatever flu is going around. It's pretty brutal. I was knocked out pretty bad for a couple days there. Probably the sickest I've been since the swine flu like 15 years ago, honestly. Yeah, it felt weird. I couldn't sleep, body aches all around and whatnot. Yeah, shit sucked. So that was no fun. And I miss lifting. I haven't lifted in about 5 or 6 days. I'm pumped to actually lift tomorrow. So that's one thing I've found is the longer that I've stuck with lifting, the more I miss it when I take time off. So sometimes it's a blessing in disguise, kind of boosts up the mindset a little bit, makes you miss it and appreciate it a bit more, I guess. The video that I have today, just something I've had on my mind. It's nothing revolutionary, but it's a programming tip. More specifically, it's a technique tip that can help a lot of you guys. And it might sound simple at first, but this method can actually let you break through certain plateaus and allow you to assess if you're actually building muscle or not. And as simple as this is, it can be a big help. And this kind of quick fix or this quick tip to try is going to be dead stop reps. And what a dead stop rep is, if you don't know, it's just pausing at the bottom or the top of a certain lift, depending on what that lift is. This isn't a pause rep where you're pausing in an actual isometric hold. This is just a dead stop rep. So if you're doing say a curl, you're just pausing at the bottom of a curl where there's no tension. Think of it like a deadlift where you let the weight sit dead on the floor. It's like that applied to any other lift. So yeah, a dead stop rep, it's about a 1 second pause or however long you want it to be at one portion of a lift, and you do that consistently between each rep that you're doing. So the first benefit that I have to this is technique improvement. And this is more specifically for a lift that's either more complex or a lift that's new in your program. This also applies to a lot of people that are new to lifting too. Having a little pause between each rep allows you to mentally reinforce those cues that you have, and it allows you to be a little bit more proactive in choosing the bar path that you're going with rather than just letting your stretch reflex and your instincts decide that. So it lets you get a quick little mental refresher, little mental reset between each rep, and it can be of benefit. Another benefit here is technique consistency in the short term. So rep over rep, you're aiming for that same exact technique. Like I said, you get to choose your bar path, and you get to reinforce those mental cues for each rep. And this also helps in the long term with session over session comparison, because yeah, in the short term, you get to use the same rep for each, you get to use the same technique for each rep within that set. You also get to make sure that each set and each session are very similar to each other. So when you're measuring progress from week 1 to say week 8 on a lift, you know you have a very consistent technique because you're doing that little pause and that little dead stop. It makes a pretty big difference. Another one here is it helps lifters with low pain tolerance get closer to muscular failure. So there are some people that, especially on certain lifts, are in a lot of pain when they're doing that set. Luckily, I'm not one of those people, and for some reason I have a very high pain tolerance and I can really push to muscular failure and not feel that much on some lifts. But there are a lot of people that do experience a pretty significant amount of pain when they're lifting. And when you do a dead stop, it allows that pain to dissipate a little bit, and you can actually push to muscular failure without any burns or anything getting in the way of that and kind of blinding your judgment and just putting you through pain. So that's another big benefit here. The only warning that I have for this method is I wouldn't use it for every lift. I would primarily use it for lifts that you are, I guess, being a little bit more aggressive with progression on. The reason for that is because a dead stop can and does eliminate the stretch reflex from each rep. And that can be an issue on some lifts because you are going to be generally stronger on the eccentric. And when you do a dead stop, the next portion of that lift is going to be the concentric. So usually, if you want to get to muscular failure, you don't want to get rid of that stretch reflex. You actually want to use that to your advantage to bypass your weakest portion of that lift, or of that rep more specifically. So it can be an issue if you're using a lift that you're actually trying to push as close to muscular failure as you can on. So I wouldn't always recommend it for everything, but it can be useful for certain lifts, and I'll get into those few lifts in a minute here. So the lifts that I've used this for, that I've had the most success with, the first one's going to be curls. I love using a dead stop on curls, and this is something I do plan on keeping in my program long term. It just lets you fight through each rep with no pain at all. Not that there's obviously not no pain at all, it's an exaggeration, but I can keep pushing, I can keep progressing, and I can keep the reps consistent and measure true progress in my biceps over time. And my curls are something I'm prone to starting to cheat on as the reps go on. So this is me just keeping myself extra accountable to make sure I'm actually building muscle and progressing in reps over time. Machine pressing is another good one. I would avoid doing this with, not that I'd avoid it, but it's a little bit less effective with something like a barbell or a dumbbell, because when you're in the bottom position, it's just a pause rep since it's still a static hold. When you're on a machine, the weight is going to be dead weight at the bottom, so you can reset, rethink your bar path, and reset your rep from there, and just restart from there. It makes a lot of sense. Another one that I like to use it for is going to be plat squats. So this one is one where you're choosing and you're actively putting your body in a disadvantage by keeping your knees forwards. And I find that when you're kind of in pain and when you're out of breath and you're just kind of going up and down nonstop, it is a little bit easier to let your hips take over. So when you can reset each rep, reinforce the idea that you can't let your hips cheat back, I find that helps a lot mentally for me to stay in that position, keep my quads biased throughout that lift. So that's all I've got for today. Quick video. I'll be back lifting, getting some better ideas to you guys in the future. It's a quick little hack, so give this thing a try, and yeah, I'm ready to get back pumping out regular videos.